J. Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. On this show, I interview leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Today's show is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we help the wine industry connect with their audiences through authentic content. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Today, I've got a really special guest, and I want to give a shout out to Brian Halfman from Latitude 33 Jets up in Palomar Airport for connecting us. Today, we're talking with Cory Assink and Zeke Blattler. They're co-founders of Los Cuernos Wine. Welcome to the show, Cory and Zeke.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. That's here.
So you've got a winery or wine brand, Los Cuernos. First, I got to ask, how did you guys meet?
We met in 2001 at a fine dining restaurant in Long Beach, California called L'Opera. I had just moved from Texas, where I grew up. And within 2 months in 2001, I started, myself, Zeke, and my now current wife all started working at the restaurant at the same time. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's where.
Oh, that's cool. And Zeke, so you both have backgrounds in wine. And so tell us about your wine background.
When we met at L'Opera, I'd already worked at the Lowe's Hotel, and I did some other retail jobs. But this one in particular had like a 500, 700 bottle list. Mm-hmm. We had an advanced sommelier. And to even get to work the floor, you had to take a test, which studied cheeses, meats, pastas. And so the wine education there was really, really strong. And then, to make more money, if you sold better wine, you made more money. So mm-hmm. Cory and I, during this time period, we were studying to be somms, and we would take wine home every day, and we'd pour, we'd blind test, and we'd read books. So we were just like die hard into studying and learning about wine. And I think once you start learning it, and then you start selling wine to consumers, that to me is the real education. My goal was that someone would have a great experience. I would pick the right wine for them. I wasn't trying to stick them with something too expensive, mm-hmm. to just the right wine where they felt great about it. So that was the beginning of kind of our wine journey. And then from there, I went to another restaurant, GM'd a couple restaurants. Cory was the wine director. Mm-hmm. And then he wrote a Wine Spectator award-winning wine list.
Oh, wow.
At that restaurant, and then I ended up going to Southern Glazers as a wine manager. Mm-hmm. Did really well there, and then I went to Young Smart Company, was R&DC, and so that was kind of the big part of my journey. But I'm a wine lover too, right? I'm a beverage enthusiast, probably like you. Oh, yeah. I love tequila, whiskey, coffee, but wine in particular, I love wine, and so I think that's kind of a combination. I drink wine often. I try a lot of wines, and that's the root of my knowledge, I guess.
Yeah. What, so before the wine career, what drew you to the industry? Was it the food, the beverage?
Drew, I wish I had a sexy answer for you. I'll be honest with mine. I don't know where Zeke's going to go with this, but to the industry, for me, it was out of necessity. So I grew up, in Texas, but as amazing of a childhood and parents as I had and have, mm-hmm. I had to work full time since I was in high school, since I could. So for me, the service industry, it just provided flexibility and cash. So that's why I got into it. And then to go back to what Zeke said, he nailed it. We just fell in love with wine and became wine lovers. But then the nuance is we realized very quickly that there was a direct correlation between the amount of wine knowledge we had and the amount of money we made. Mm. Then, like he said, before we were each married, we're each, married and each have 3 daughters, which is kind of funny in the best way. But, but we, before we were married, when we were really into wine, he said we'd bring bottles home. That's exactly what we would do. We'd be playing video games, but we would intentionally choose wines that we had no idea what they were. Whether we didn't, we're like, wait, what? Is that the grape? Is that the country? Is that the region? What?
I thought for a second you're going to say you're pairing wines with the video games.
Hey, I wouldn't.
You got a real-time shooter. That's going to be a Petite Sirah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it was just one of those things where we just would choose ones we had no clue on purpose, and then just open them up, and then open the book and kind of dig into it and figure out or just have a better understanding of why it tasted how it did. Good, bad, or different.
How about you, Zeke?
Yeah, same. It was really to make money at first, working in restaurants, and then getting like good at it. And the better you got, like literally wine changed my life. Like going from restaurants Southern and being corporate America and then being good there. Like, so I love wine and it changed my life. So I don't know much more I could say.
I think that's I think that's a common story. Like you're introduced to it for there's many different avenues. I was a stock person in college for the Sheraton restaurant where I stocked the bars every Saturday morning. And then after I graduated with a degree in philosophy and ancient Greek, I got a job stocking the shelves at a local wine store. And then that's when I caught the bug and I just started reading everything and then became a wine buyer. And then it just kind of, the passion just flowed from there. But it's that passion, I think, that sparks it.
Yeah. And you're right. I'll add one more thing, Drew. Like, Zeke and I met in the service industry, right? Which, is amazing in a lot of ways. And it allows for, flexibility. We see at least here kind of where we are in SoCal in the States, that's kind of, that's kind of one of the big benefits of it, right? You have the flexibility, you can make money without kind of the corporate tie downs. But then once we got into wine, it was like, whether it was conscious or not, we just realized, okay, there's more to this. And I think to go to the, to take the next step for us, that next step. And we did it at different times and different years, but, kind of piggybacking on kind of what, Zeke's intro, I also at different times in Zeke worked for Southern Glaciers and Young's RNDC as well. So we both inevitably went from kind of the service industry side of it to the wholesale supplier side.
Yeah.
To do it for real.
Yeah. That's the common, but so many people just stay in that wholesale side or they'll stay on the service side. How did you guys make that entrepreneurial leap? Because not a lot of people successfully do that.
Well, I just want to be clear, we're on your question, like to the wholesale side or actually launching our brand?
Launching your brand.
Okay.
Like becoming, launching a brand. I mean, a full ready to drink. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment.
I'll let Zeke start that one.
Yeah. Well, I think the first time we wanted to like do our own wine was we were working at a restaurant. I was the general manager. He was the wine director. And we actually went to this guy, Ovid, who made wine. And I was like, wait a minute. He took us to Terrebonne in Bealton. And I looked at it. I looked how he made it. And I think Summerlin was doing some wine there too. And so I talked to the winemaker. And I was like, wow, I thought this was going to be the most hardest thing ever. He kind of explained it a little bit. So that was kind of the first time.
Yeah, it became tangible.
That was 2007.
We're like, okay.
Yeah.
It's not all,
And then going into Southern at 2010 in distribution, I was good at selling wine. So I was thinking more and more, okay, and then the one thing we wanted to do was to like make a good wine. And so if you know the industry, it's very hard to get wine on the shelf with a 3-tier system, big incubants, like how do you get in? So we were tinkering. This is like in 2010, I'm still talking about white blends and red blends. Right. And then, so I think the first time I told someone we'd really, really do this would be like 2012 or 13. So it's 2024 now. It's taken 12 years.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was gaining the confidence through my career arc, one, that I could do it, and then learning enough about the industry to decide to do it. And then, you eventually have to like quit your job and raise money to actually do it. Actually do it, and which was so much harder than I had anticipated, even though I was very good at corporate America. So yeah, really a passion for wine combined with seeing others do it. And say, okay, well, let's try to do this. And one unique part about this is the Petit Syrah blends is that in 2014, we talked about doing that. So now they're very popular, right? It's a full body grape. It makes good red blends. But we, in 2010, said, hey, we want to make a Petit Syrah red blend. And then if I'm jumping ahead here,
I have a feeling you're about to.
Well, I did. I know from sales that if I just had we had an even product, you're not going to win. Like, when you're a wine rep and you have a wine that costs like say $10 wholesale, but drinks like 14, it's so easy. I'm not easy, but you're like, hey, I got this one.
Yeah.
You try it out. You're so proud of it. The converse in distribution is when you have a $10 wine that tastes like a $6, have $1. Then you get a giant quota and you're like, oh my God, I gotta sell it. And a lot of times I'd say, hey man, this is a dog, pour this off your sink or your house wine. Mm-hmm. But so that part about it is I think I tried like 300 red blends when I was living in LA. I moved to Chicago and San Diego. So did a lot of trial. And then we talked to a lot of people about the different varietals and kind of stuff they like to drink.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Zeke said, and I'm going to transition us, I think, to something that's super important, specifically for our brand too. You mentioned it before, Drew, and it's the actual can, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous and asinine when he first brought it to the table. But so like Zeke said, talking about the wine is from, over 10 years ago, almost 15 now, we were obsessing over making, this is going to happen for like so long ago. Everybody in our whole network is known. We've spoke this thing into existence for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, but specifically, we had always wanted to make petite Syrah driven blends from Lodi, kind of before it was cool. And, kind of maybe for another time. And that's where our winemaker, Gerardo Espinoza is from, and where he lives is out of Lodi. We can get into that maybe later if you want, but, I'll say this, it was about 4 years ago, that Zeke brought up the idea of putting it into a can. And
brilliant.
A little bit about Zeke and I mean, if you can't tell already, he was the best man at my wedding 20 years ago. We're best friends, but we are opposite. We are opposite. I will get into the nuances of how we're opposite because we would probably offend each other. No, but we're opposite, and I lost my train of thought.
I'm trying to love the cans. I'll tell you how I remember it.
Oh yeah, I was like,
I came back. I started seeing White Claw in Chicago in 15, 16, 17. Like all the Southern guys, their wives were drinking it, and they're like, "Oh, this thing." They were kind of annoyed because they didn't sell it. And I came to San Diego, and then all of a sudden, like, wait, Liquid Death, you're seeing High Noon, you're seeing all this can adoption. And I was like, you know what? I was like, we need to do Los Cuernos in a can. Told him, he's like, absolutely not.
Well, Drew, you can probably understand, like a lot of what we're dealing with now, which, we may or may not get into in a bit, is just the perception, right? And just the industry staunched with tradition, which in itself is not bad. It's amazing, but just that kind of mental, thing of like, you can't do that. In a little context, I've always been the more like, I don't know, what's the best word?
Traditional?
No, like fancy. I'm always like, he'll make fun of me because I at least try or think I'm more bougie.
So kind of the ritual of opening up a bottle and the cork.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I was way
sommelier. That's what you're used to.
Yeah. And I was, a couple of the roles I had in the industry, I was like the luxury wine specialist for one of the biggest Antinori Saint Michel books in the world. Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I'm in, not that this really matters, but it's just kind of where my head was at, is like how fancy of a real wine guy and so on I thought I was, which is kind of sad and kind of humbling to admit. Because it's a lot of the kind of the resistance and the friction that we go against today, getting consumers to try our wine. So does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. The whole perception, like I was a wine buyer from like 93 through 2002. And right then Plump Jack came out with one of the first premium screw caps. And trying to sell Plump Jack with the screw cap and convince them, then it was, I think, $55, that it's actually better. And just even the perception around screw caps was a huge deal for selling wine. And then moving towards that alternative, I don't even want to call it alternative packaging, cans. Like now people prefer beer in cans. It's really, the bottle sales are way down.
Yeah.
So but then there's that shift between, okay, I'm used to beer, I'm used to seltzer, I'm used to all these ready to drink categories in cans, but wine, well, that's got to be bad.
Yeah. There's still much there.
Yeah, you think about it from an operator, like, so Cory and I have really worked on all sides of the 3-tier system, and we're also lovers of wine. So the real moment for us and for me is like going to like restaurants that have terrible wine by the glass programs or bad wine or old wine. And so thinking that what the can would solve is that the wine would be fresh and would be consistent. And then it helps with inventory.
Because forecasts.
If you get a bad wine at a restaurant, not like a horribly corked one, you get one that's slightly off, it's not a good experience. And it's like $12, but then you're like, this is, and like, are you sure?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Get like shamed, even if it's corked sometimes. I like feel guilty when I know beyond a shadow of a doubt the wine is faulty, right?
Yeah. My wife's like, shut the hell up. Just drink it. And I'm like, I can't. I gotta tell him.
And for the wine lover, like the first thing I will do is look at the beverage menu. I'm sure you do, Drew, because you're a beverage guy. The first thing you do, I'm like, okay, this, and I'm going to tell you a story from yesterday. My wife's birthday, we ate at a pho place. I won't out them in North County, San Diego. And they have Modern Times, they have Burgeons, they have like 7 or 8 beers.
Great craft beer.
And they have 2 wines. And they're both gross. And so at that point, I'm going to drink a beer. Like literally on my wife's birthday, I want to have one my food, and I can't get a glass of wine because I know those 2 wines are terrible. And I know they cost $3-4 a bottle. So that is kind of the essence of what the can do. Yeah. Is that you can get better liquid to those accounts. And that's kind of like one of the things that we're doing in Los Cuernos.
I'll add to that because he's exactly right about getting to those accounts. But let's think bigger picture, or let's just take a little step back for a second. And what the can allows you to do is just bring, well, in Los Cuernos' kind of situation, it allows us to bring better wine to more people in more occasions. Like, think about it. Yeah. You can have like our 2 reds are so gnarly. If you like wine, you'll trip. It's like, because we went non-vintage, we'll get into that a little later too. But like our wines are, especially the reds, think of them as properly aged and finished wines that were specifically made for the can. And when I say traditionally aged, I mean in small oak barrels, not the can. And,
will wine age in a can with 0 oxidation?
So wine is a living organism, so it's going to age regardless. It is not meant to age in the can.
No, so I was wondering if anybody's done any studies on that. And I've asked this before on the show to some other producers that do some canned wines. I'm kind of wondering what like if somebody, like a wine that's designed to age, and you age it in the bottle, you age it in the can, and see what the difference is.
I think we'll just have to see. I'm sure there's wine laying down in cans somewhere in a cellar right now.
You don't even have to lay it down. It can be straight up.
Just waiting to produce the white paper.
I'm kind of rambling, but you brought up a great point about the size of the can, especially with that pho place that may only sell a glass of wine every 2 or 3 days. They open that bottle. There's no way that wine's fresh, or they're going to go through it. So it's a loss for them. But if you sell them a can, everybody's going to get a fresh product.
It's actually a bad customer experience. Like if I get the cool craft beers that they have in my food, I feel good about it. And their food is excellent. Like food is really good. But if I drink that wine, it's like a punishment for the wine drinker. Like, because you like wine and we know, and what they'll say is, well, if it opens and go to bad, that's what we got to mark it up 4X. So that is that is the reason why I did the cans. It allows us to bring fresh wine. Then secondly, being in the industry, all wine, 95% of wine is sold current vintage. And they try to get it on, you're a buyer, they get it out every year out. If you get, like, once it turns the vintage, they're discounting it, they're pushing it out, right? So it's like, to me, that didn't matter. And that's why we thought about, when we did this, going into the vintage piece, and we were scared. Like, that's going to sound like I was so sure, we were sure. I was like, I don't know, what do we do? And our goal was to make great wine. And so at the end, I'll tell the story, and maybe you get the winemaker one day. Gerardo, he was doing our shards, and he said, hey, I got current vintage shard at this price, but I have last year's, half the price, twice as good.
And it was literally an organic conversation as we were already developing our wine, and we were really close to the final iteration. And it was a phone call, and he literally said that. And we were like, wait. So we're like, time out. So what you're saying is you can make a better wine for less. He said, yes. And if we go non-vintage. So that is how it happened. We looked at each other and we were like, huh. And, you know, even though we like to shoot from the hip, we sometimes like to be wise and smart and at least wait 24 hours to make a decision. So we slept on it. True story, slept on it. And the next day made the formal decision that Los Cuernos was going to be non-vintage. Yeah. And it was probably one of the best decisions we've made. Because and the reason why is if you haven't tasted our wine, can't wait till you do. But I think going non-vintage is best. It's the best example of it is our Reserva wine, because the wine in there is like, it's like 30 months, small French oak barriques. Like nothing like it exists in a single serve format. It does not exist.
Yeah, I know that I'm a big fan of these like Solera systems, and some of these wineries have the idea where they've got
like champagne.
Champagne's got it, Desperada's got a Solera high-end wine. But there's two reasons. You either go for a consistent product or you just go for something unique where suddenly that combined blend just takes on a life of its own.
Yep. Yeah, you're nailing it. And people have their opinions on Opus, but they make that wine Overture. And that is a non-vintage from several vintage, and it just comes out ready to drink. And so, you know, the initial mock-ups for our cans, these are right here.
Oh yeah.
Had the vintage on it. So the first run of like the mock-ups, it said 2021 because we were planning on doing vintage. And now we just like, oh, it's so obvious because the wine came out great. But in the moment, I was like, we're going to buckle all this tradition. People are going to like it. Do we put an NV on the can? Do they think it's Nevada?
You know, it's funny, Drew, after we made the decision for non-vintage, when we were submitting our colas, you know, doing the final stuff with the TTB, our initial submission had NV on it because I just assumed that if we're not going to have a vintage, we have to, you know, put something. And we actually got word back saying, take that off. And we're like, oh, sweet. Because even though we know what it is, general, you know, consumer doesn't. And I think it would just, you know, potentially add to kind of more confusion. But Zeke said something that I would like to kind of touch on. Sure. And he was talking about non-vintage, and I want to connect it to something. So when we made that decision, it was the only reason we had the vintage on there originally is because that's how we thought it always, that's just how it is. That's what you do. It wasn't even a conscious thought. And so what we're doing here at Los Cuernos too, which is very different, and we scream it from the mountaintops. You'll see it on our packaging. You'll see it on the cans or wherever. It's everywhere. It's just great wine, no rules, right? So, you know, we've talked about we're all kind of fancy kind of wine guys as far as our experience and our background goes, but what good is that? It's really not, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. Why? Just to intimidate others so they can, you know, just ultimately say, you know what, this is too fussy. I'll just take a beer. No. So our whole thing's great wine, no rules, talking about bucking the system, thinking differently, thinking about wine differently, and still appreciating, the history and the tradition of wine itself, but just thinking about it in a new way. I mean, you mentioned the plum jack screw top kind of thing. And then we've been talking about beer. Think about beer. Innovation wise, 15 years ago, it was hard to find a craft beer in a can. Yeah. Now you can't really find one not in a can. So, so that felt right to us to just be like, great wine, no rules. Just don't overthink it. Drink what you like. Right. Yeah. I mean, so that's the essence of our brand.
I mean, the fact that it's just so convenient. Like I camp a lot, I go hiking, go surfing, go to the beach. It's not practical. River rafting. That was one of the first times I had brought a whole slew of canned wines on. We were rafting down the Rogue River, and you're not going to bring a bottle of wine.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to fill the bottle of wine into your water bottle, and then that leaked into my whole bag. So after that, I went into I'm a big advocate for canned wine if you're hiking or river rafting.
Love it.
And canned wine is getting better. The cans are getting better, and I think the producers are getting better. Some of the initial canned wines are bad. I think that hurts us as well, that a lot of them were just subpar bottled wine poured into cans. And so let's talk more about the cans and the canned wines. This is like kind of behind the craft. A couple of things that we did different. We knew we were going to do calorie count right away. So we put calories on there. We put that it's low carb, low sugar, naturally. People don't know that. Many people don't know that.
I am shocked, and I think less people know that every year. There's like, I don't get what's happened, and I think seltzers was a big. I mean, the whole seltzer industry, I think, waged all-out war with the wine industry, and the wine industry didn't know it at the time. I was going to these seminars, and everybody's worried that wine's no longer considered healthy, and the Gen Zs just think, oh, seltzer's clear, White Claw. It's got to be better for me, because the wineries didn't put, what is Zeke, you were saying, they don't put any of the ingredients on the bottle. They don't put any of the calorie count. So what people think is like, oh, this is just sweet juice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, so much to say here. And it's like a lot of, so some of the canned cocktails are spirit based, some of them are malt beverage based. So literally you're taking Colt 45, 8-ball, you're taking malt liquor and you're putting it in a can with chemicals. And like, there's this push against processed foods, and like, it is quintessentially chemicals and malt liquor. Right?
And then on the flip side, wine's been around 6,000 years, a gift from God, right?
Yeah.
It's the most iconic beverage in the world, right?
Just happened. And here's a other weird perception. Kombucha. Heard kombucha does not ferment. They ferment kombucha and then they add alcohol to it. I mean, I love kombucha, but I'm there. That's the dirty secret, that whenever I get a kombucha producer on the show, I ask them, so where's this alcohol coming from?
See, I wasn't aware. I had no idea. I mean, I don't drink kombucha, neither here nor there, but that's interesting.
I think we are with the part of the wine industry that was poor. Like an industry, it reminded me of baseball and cable TV. Like if you looked at the demographics when we were starting this, it's like 60, 65 plus. The average age of both sports and cable television, they just didn't innovate. And so what happened, YouTube just came in and like cleaned the clock, in baseball has known about this shot clock for like pitch clock for years, for decades. They finally did it when the games got 5 hours long, right? And so I think the stakeholder alignment of the bottled pieces of it, the 3-tier system doesn't include the customer. It includes distributors, suppliers, and retailers. So they're not intentionally trying to do it, but if you go to small places now, all right, let me be clear about this one. The problem with wine, why the wine industry is declining, because it's happened to me 15 years ago, 12 years ago. I would go to sports bars. I would point out a Thai restaurant in Anaheim, they say, Zeke, don't go there. You go to the hotels. You go to White Tablecloth. You go to this. So we never made something that was easier for broad distribution. If you go on Google Maps right now and you look up restaurants in the area, there'll be 50 restaurants. 49 or 50 will have good beers. The ones that sell liquor will have good cocktails, and the ones that have craft will. But wine, it'll be like 10. And so that's the big part of the industry that we want to like change, is that the baseline shouldn't be, and no offense to these brands, but these are the most widely distributed single serve brands: Sutter Home, Cope de Vino, and Woodbridge. The wines that really, really sell: Sonoma Cutrer, Dow, Prisoner, La Crema. So we made wines in that style, put it in a can. But that's what's killing the industry. If I'm young today and I go to a place, I can get a great beer, but you're going to give me Copa de Vino, or you're going to give me Sutter Home. Like, well, of course I don't think wine's good.
Yeah, of course you don't sell hardly any wine in your place. It's shitty.
Yeah.
And those are not like bad brands. Those are good, very entry-level brands. But today's consumer, like when I was in Chicago and I saw 23, 24-year-old females drinking Jameson in Maker's Mark Manhattans or on the rocks, like I was drinking like rum and cokes and like sweet things. The consumer has evolved and wine has not evolved with. Anyways, ran over on that.
I preaching to the choir there. So let's move to how do you target like your ideal client. I mean, you're looking for someone in their mid-20s. You're trying to make wine, no rules, really take that stigma and make it, for lack of a better word, cool again. How are you going about that?
I think our ideal customer is in 3 buckets. I wouldn't even put an age on it. Definitely, people that are like 16 up generally don't change beverage preferences. So
I'll put an age on it. 21 legal.
People that love wine, when they get our wine or they get a good wine in front of them, they're so happy and relieved. If they get it in non-traditional places or places they wouldn't expect. So if you love wine, you made a great wine. Second, I call them beverage enthusiasts. And that's the whiskey, tequila, wine, coffee, tea. Like they appreciate the craft regimen, the craft or beverage. And then foodies. Because people that are going to take pictures of food and like good food, they're gonna know a lot about beverage too. So that is our demographic that we're going towards. And then bringing wine to places where it's not generally been before is kind of our strategy. So, in social, I think to me, it's a couple buckets. Is one, just getting the message about wine. So wine's been, Cory mentioned, been around for 6,000 years. It's low carb, it's low sugar naturally. Like the reds are 1 gram sugar, 4 grams of carbs. A rosé is 2 grams sugar, and the Chardonnay is just 1. And then if you look at research on gut biome, wine is the best on that versus spirits and beer. Spirits are far and away the worst. Beer is like a little negative, wine's a little better. So it's the product that probably Gen Z millennials want. They just don't know about it because it's never been marketed to them except like really bad wine. And then, fluid people get to drink the good stuff. And it's a weird world to live in. So, and then from a social media perspective, marketing perspective, we believe in celebrating our partners. So I think you've seen the San Diego Wave. I'm wearing a Wahoo shirt.
Yes, love Wahoo tacos.
So Wahoo's is going to bring us in. So we celebrate our partners. We help our retailers and our partners make money. We'd be easy to work with. And then we work within the communities that we're in. And now is the first time in the world that a small company like ours can talk directly to their consumers, right? 15 years ago when I was in wine, we'd have to get over the top marketing on ESPN, ABC, Food Network. Well, now we can tell our story, which is a true story of people loving wine, and just build it out organically. So it's hard, but that's kind of what we're trying to do.
You brought up a really good point that I want to make sure everyone kind of thinks about. I wish more wineries would listen to this. I was speaking at a conference on lo-fi marketing, but Polly from Five Forests gave a talk on the fact that we got to stop worrying about Gen Z, millennials, Gen X. The age does not matter. What matters is the psychographic profile, because I'm in my mid-50s and I identify more with what's happening in the 20-year-olds, like with surfing still and hiking. And, the music I listen to is probably more along those lines. And right now it's a mistake to go, we're targeting the 45 to 50-year-old crowd. Yeah. Really, it's that psychographic profile that will resonate with the brand. And I think a lot of wineries are missing that boat.
Yeah, no, 100% agree on that. They everyone you see on LinkedIn, the wine industry freak out right now because the bottles are just eating each other, but they won't there's just bad options. They haven't addressed it. Beers have a keg and draft system. And then RTDs have single serve. Spirits have small sizes, cocktails, shelf stable. And wine is no, 4 servings that expires once you open it. It's and deal with it. And we're not moving. And so that is what has to change. And it's a behemoth. So gotta move the rock.
One thing I'd like to see, and I don't know if you're considering this, is the 3-liter bladder bags. For people that actually drink wine, to actually have the packaging, it's sustainable, it's easy to transport, and you're going to drink a few bottles a week. Have premium wine in a bladder bag. I know Cowboys Creek, I'm a big fan of their hot line.
So,
they're making that in the red, and they're kind of, they're not, they're one of the few that are doing it. And I know Carboy over in Colorado is doing something like that. But I think it's just thinking about all that different packaging. Have the single serving, and have for restaurants, for everything, have that bladder bag or have a Carboy.
Thanks for the suggestion. Yeah.
Have you guys tried that new high-end box wine? It's like 99, it's like $99 for I haven't tried it yet, but I know the Tablis's Pat one's fantastic. It's like 117.
Yeah.
But I would say that's like a logical extension to
We have discussed that. I think for now we're really working on kind of the can footprint and where we do well is like the QSRs. And I'll tell you some mistakes that we made. Like,
oh yeah,
I was out of the industry for 5 years, and I talk all these people, but like Sauv Blanc is like on fire right now. So that's what we're coming out with next, Sauvignon Blanc. I think that's going to do really well. We had a pizzeria tell us, as soon as it's ready, just send it to me. I don't even want to try it. So that was a good feeling.
Yeah. But going back to your kind of the Blattler thing, Drew, I mean, it's a great suggestion. We've actually had some mock-ups, and we were going to fire out from the beginning with that as well. But we just wanted to focus, and ultimately for us as a newish emerging brand, it's the awareness and the trial so important, and the lower barrier to entry. So right now, 20, kind of standard 6-liter, 24 unit, cases, but then we have, 4 packs. But even at retail, we don't, it's often, because, a lot of folks think our packaging is beautiful, specifically our 4-pack boxes. And a lot of the retailers, will just assume or want to merchandise those. And we prefer not to, because, not only is it more expensive, we're premium product, but we're new. We want people to try it.
So what advice, and I don't know if you really want to give this, what advice do you have of actually getting on the shelf at these stores? Placement. I know placement is so tough.
Zeke's amazing at being data-driven, just because he is data-driven and he's a smart fella. But some other things, to answer your question is, let's face it, it starts with, I'm generalizing now, right? Because, there's always exceptions, but you have to have a great product, right? You start there, you have to have a great product. A lot of people think that's it. And you're just like, just need a great product, and then everyone's going to know, and
they will come.
Want it. Yeah, it's so not true. So although a great product is a critical element, it's probably the most fundamental element. That's just to get in there, just to have just to play, or just to try to play. So I would say great product, just strategic. You want to prioritize. Another thing is just being very persistent and knowing things take a lot of time. I mean, I could give you we're up to 100 accounts now in San Diego.
Awesome.
I could give you story after story after story after story after story about accounts that initially I might have known the people organically from my normal life as a customer or from Southern. These people could love me. They could love our product. They could be all about it. And then still, I have numerous stories that even within those situations, I end up going in there before even getting a first order, 10 to 15 times over, 2 to 3 months. Right. So it's like, you definitely can't lose heart. You can't take things personal. You have to remain poised, not be frustrated. And my biggest thing is I always love to provide value.
Yeah.
Because you're a buyer. I was a buyer. I know what I hated I know what I hated, like the Southern and Young's reps would do when they would come in. So I definitely don't do that. Right. Everybody has their different approach, but like to be very organic, provide value, and then ultimately just be persistent and just be a good partner, and of course have a good product.
Yeah. I think make them money and be easy to work with. And now that we have some pretty good accounts, so we have like the Legoland hotels, we have Obi Noodle House, we have Sandbox. So now we have some anchors, or you can point to that we're making them money. But yeah, we work with them on merchandising it right on the shelf. We have the San Diego Way partnership. But yeah, it's an up and down the street knife fight.
It's boots on the ground. It's common
to make their job easy. So in addition, once you do get the sell in, because we know the game and we want to make their job easy, we always merchandise, right? And, we come prepared with branded, even with our San Diego Wave here in San Diego, co-branded kind of POS, whether it's shelf talkers, shelf strips, window clings, when you're talking off-prem retail, they see that's value to them. That is going to help promote and market your product. that, you know, a lot of times it's hard to come by, or when it's there, it usually comes from the big brand. So a lot of times it's the details, and just the more you can make their job easy, have all the nice stuff, have it look nice, have a good products, do all the work. I mean, basically just do everything.
Yeah. Have the margin profile, understand how much margin they make right away. Because if you don't, like I said, if you don't know where it's going to go on the shelf, you know how much they're going to sell it before you talk to them, go back and figure that out. Because certain locations are going to do a higher markup, some lower, some will not have shelf space, some may not have coldback space. So that would be my big recommendation: is look where you think you're going to go, what you're going to ask for, and then for how much, and then justify to them like how much. I guess I am data driven. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want. So I want to talk about your winemaker and your wines, but I also want to give, just to put a cap on this, boots on the ground.
Yeah,
and the wine's different now than it was then, but one of the better interviews that I've had on the show is Michael Houlihan, the founder of Barefoot Wines. Okay. And his story, he wrote a book on how they founded it, but the audiobook is actually narrated like a play. And it's all about his, like, starting from the first wine, trying to get into the first store, and then trying to get into the chains. But it is a masterclass in, like, launching a wine brand. It's a good read.
Check it out.
It's a good read.
What's his last name?
Houlihan. Michael Houlihan. I was hoping I'm just going to turn around and see it, but I don't. So yeah, but yeah, check it out. It's an interesting book. Let's talk about your winemaker and your wines.
Yeah. Right. I want to say the moment of all for me was, we talked about that before, about Cory and I had tried, I don't think we've tried thousands of wines and maybe 10,000. So whenever I was distributor, they would bring in wines, you get all these suppliers. I would be trying, and I would know how much it costs, and I would be like, oh no, this is going to be hard. This is going to be easy. This is going to be great. And when the wine's really good, it's going to be easy. So we knew in doing this that if we just made the same level of wine, that it was going to be really hard to go against big wine and those big distributors. So we actually had to be better. And so that would be the first part about it. So the non-vintage piece, lowered costs, improved wines. They can, no cap, no closure, no cork. Going non-vintage means we don't have to reprint labels every year as well.
Sure.
So we've saved some costs. We reinvested that for the wine. So now I was like, okay, can we make better wine? So the funny part is, we wanted to do Petite Syrah wines. We knew that. We decided we were going to do a sparkling rosé, Chardonnay, a red blend. Then we're going to do just the best can wine ever. So our reserve wine is $15 for 8.5 ounce can. And to go back before I go to the wine, we had to pick the size. And so my opinion, there were some good can wines in the 187 cans, but it's too small for a person to hold. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so we picked the 8.4 Slim because it was a glass and a half. And it just fit right better in the hand. And then in counter service restaurants, it gave you a glass and so to the wine. So
Gerardo.
We knew what kind of wines we wanted to make. We knew what it was going to look like, but we needed someone to make the wines. And so, hi guys.
Not winemakers.
So we're like Googling custom crushes, because I had went to that Terravant custom crush in 2007. We were looking at all. And so we Googled this one, and this guy had worked with Petite Syrah. It was called Lodi Crush. And I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep this short. We just formed the company. I think Zeke's wife and kids were in Colombia. We were working out of his house at this day. And I literally cold called Lodi Crush, talked to a guy on the other line. We hit it off, asked him a lot of questions. One thing led to another. And we're just, hour later, he's kind of fascinated. We're engaged. At the end of the call, I find out that the gentleman I was talking to was Gerardo Espinoza, who is the owner of Lodi Crush. And he's an award-winning winemaker. Wow. And then once we looked, once we kind of dug a little deeper, kind of to Zeke's point, we realized that, he's, third generation Mexican-American winemaker whose great grandfather came over in the 40s on the Bracero program from Mexico to Lodi specifically. So, but that, he has such an amazing story. Now he, his family owns vineyards. They're business owners. Gerardo has his own brand. In addition to owning and operating Lodi Crush and making wine for other people as well. So he just has a fascinating story, and his family, his lineage was actually one of the first to put Petit Syrah in the ground in Lodi. And so,
wow.
I mean, this is just stuff we just nerd out on because it's so, like amazing things like this, call them miracles. Like it's just, they keep happening and happening. But it's special to us because like we said, we've obsessed over making Petit Syrah driven blends out of Lodi for almost 15 years. And then here we are to the point where we're already doing this thing. We've already burned the bridges. We've already quit our corporate jobs. And we see the line of sight and we're like, okay, winemaker. And then Gerardo happened.
Yeah, right. Funnier because he doesn't know this, but like, yeah, quit our job. We didn't raise a lot of money. Like this thing has been bootstrapped since day one. Like we've had like 90, 120 days of burn consistently. So it's been really hard, but we're like, okay, when can we come over? He's like, Tuesday. So we called him like on a Wednesday, Thursday, and we flew to Lodi to Sacramento on the following Tuesday. And then part of what Cory mentioned that he's a grower first. So he really understands the soils, the composition, the light, sun, like he really understands about grapes. And then he became a winemaker. To me, there's a difference between just a winemaker and a grower. Where we got both.
He's a farmer by trade. And then it also just how his organic network is all winemakers and farmers.
Interesting fact. The term wine making didn't come around until 1968. For that, it was wine growing. And it had happened right in Napa when they had to actually because half the grapes planted there are not even suitable to there. So you actually needed to kind of do some interventionist winemaking. And then people became winemakers from wine growers.
I don't know. Thank you.
Anyways, sorry to.
No, I'm going to share that later. So it's still, we had the label done. We had all the stuff. We wrote him all these notes and we picked 5 wines that were similar to the kinds we wanted for each raw, except for the reserve. Then he made wines and he came down to San Diego. We met in a hotel and that was the moment of truth. And I was super nervous and I tried the first one and I was like, oh, okay, this is really good. They're still out of these plastic containers. Then the second one, he did a tweak to it. He's like, I wanted to do one this way. And I was like, wow, that's not what we said. I didn't say it out loud, but it turned out great. And now, a year and a half has passed. And we fully understand his capability and he has full reign, just kind of do it because he understands the style. So I just think it was luck, man. Like we really got lucky with him.
That is, and that's so different than a lot of the wines in the lower category. You're taking a grapes first approach and a wine growing first approach, versus the other route that many people could take is just going to surplus wine and just tasting through bulk barrels, and we'll take this one, this one, and push it all together.
Love that, Drew. I'll even take a step further and say we started with the customer first and then reverse engineer it. And then you get to the grapes and the fruit, right? The winemaking.
Yeah. I do want to get this good point about why we're different here because you brought it up. So we are building like those other wines, like Champagne, like Overture, like Abacus, and I would say like Maker's Mark, one of my favorite brands. We're building to a style. So every year, Los Cuernos should taste like a $24 bottle, $20. Taste this fruit, taste this style. And then Gerardo, with his relationships and his ability and non-vintage, can build towards that style year in, year out. So we want it to be consistent. We don't want to depend on scores, on vintages. We want a consumer who grabs this wine for outdoors or small restaurants say, oh, I know what this is going to taste like every time.
Customer first.
Yeah, that's it.
Who does the final blend? Is it Gerardo?
Gerardo, yeah. We tried them all with him, of course. Like any wine, it's us two. Then we have like 3 or 4 more industry people that work as advisors on our team now also. We'll try all the wines.
But Gerardo's full. He has full autonomy. He completely oversees our winemaking operation. But he'll tell you too. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but it's a cool, unique relationship. Because normally the people that he makes wine for, they're just different. They have different backgrounds. And so it's kind of been fun at first, he said he thought it was going to be strange or intimidating, but like, it's just awesome being able to work with him because we understand him. He understands us, even though we kind of do different things, right? He thinks we're crazy. He thinks it's impossible. He's like, what? How many cans are we going to, what's the second run going to be? And we're like, nothing. And he's like, but we don't know how to make wine. And to him, that's easy.
Yeah.
And the one glass of canned wine is different. You have to lower the acidity. It has a different acidity levels, different compounds going to it. Because of the seal, you don't want the wine to like evolve in the can at all. You want it to be a finished wine, as Cory would say. So that was different for him, that he did a lot of research on the cans. And even with our co-manufacturer, there's a lot of work done to make a wine designed for the can. If you pour bottled wine into the can, which I know a big producer did, you'll get reductive and it'll have that egg taste or it'll taste like sulfur.
Yeah, I was interviewing the owner of Brooks Winery, and they're coming up with they have a canned wine. It's in the shape, theirs is in the shape of a wine bottle. It's like a but they were bringing up the same sort of issues, how there is a little bit of a different kind of a packaging necessities.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, the cork is porous, right? So that alone, it's going to be different.
I want to just bring it up, and it may not even be a conversation, but I was at the conference. I was talking with the people at Tastery. It's a AI-driven company that will analyze your wine and give you winemaking example. Well, they'll tell you what the consumer wants, and they'll tell you what you need to do when you're making the wine to more resonate with the consumer using their AI models. I was a little skeptical. What are your thoughts on that? Is there a role of AI in the winemaking process?
Love this. This is a curveball. He's going to get fired up right now.
Okay, yeah. So to me, AI is used to take current data sets and optimize them because it's faster than human beings, the amount of data they can process. AI is not good currently at taking brand new innovation or brand new data and making this. So I think there would be things there with enough data points to help people out. I do believe though, like the evolution in taste profiles or classically works does make sense. So I think it can help, but you're going to have human beings greatly involved in the process of making the wine out, because you'll miss things because it's just working off a current data set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'm worried about the homogenization of it, where all the wine is just going to start to taste the same because that's what I think the consumer wants. And sometimes the consumer doesn't know what they want.
Yes.
You know what they're going to want next, and that's where the magic is. But I thought it was a good idea for removing smoke taint and whatnot. You analyze the wine, the AI is going to tell you exactly the things you got to do to pull it out. But it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I don't think AI is for every single thing. People just want to slap it on everything to get more funding or more sales.
Oh yeah, being in the marketing side of the industry, that's all I hear now. So I had to bring it up. So let's see, no rules. So we've talked about no rules. We've got the cans. Moving forward, where do you see your brand growing in the next 4 to 8 years? That's
a great question. So where we do best is where the traditional wine footprint is kind of let the customer down, right? Like the fact that we can get tons of great beers and we get all the craft cocktails, but we get mediocre wine in most places. So we do well in small format restaurants. So we call them counter service restaurants. And I think that's the way the world is heading with basically population. The rate of population is declining, and we see labor costs as the most hard to manage cost variable in the restaurant industry. And now we see kiosks and people ordering. So bottled wine is not going to work in an automated and robotics world. Cans already do, and they will. And so the unique thing that we have done is we've actually made wine cheaper for everybody. So if you go to Archer Zero, you're going to get a glass and a half of $24 wine for $10. If you go to a restaurant across the street and that's 8 ounces, you're going to get one glass of wine of a $8 to $9 bottle, right? So it's to me, that incentive structure that we've created with these small restaurants, eventually it's do I want to go pay more at this restaurant? Like you're paying basically like, what's the term here? Like amusement park prices or airport prices for wine in restaurants. And then you're going to have cool pizzerias, cool taco shops, cool everywhere being able to pour better wines. And then as the world continues to evolve, I think the waiters are going to start fading away. Like, so I think restaurants in California be like 70% counter service, 30% waiters, just because minimum wage is going to keep going up. And then for us, you know, we're going to launch the Sauv Blanc. We're going to do a Brut. I think that's another like huge gap in market and a Pinot Noir. So that would be 8 wines. And then we want to expand out to really outdoor driven states are great for us. So Hawaii, California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and then definitely Illinois and New York. You get those states, you have like 85 to 90% of the wine universe.
Sure.
We have discussed doing some stuff international. In fact, we're going to the Cholos game tonight in Tijuana.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome.
In beverage director. And, you know, we just make a lot of great wine more available to more people and, awesome. and change the can evolution too. Cause that's the thing that we have to carry too. So like my cans, I like Canoe Ridge out of Washington. It's a good can wine maker. Has done some good can wines as well. Michael David has done some good ones. So I think we have to support the can innovation as well.
Yeah.
And we're in final talks right now with the large strategic distributors. So it's even crazy to think kind of where we are with even still doing that. But with that being said, Zeke talked about the expansion strategy, but to be clear, right now we are very, very intentional about just focusing on San Diego and Silicon Valley.
Smart.
And then we have our two sports partnerships that anchor those two markets. So mentioned Wave, but then we're the official can wine of the Quakes, the MLS team up in San Jose, and an official can wine at PayPal Park too.
Oh, awesome. This has been a fantastic conversation. Is there any last words you want to leave with it? And where can people find your wines online?
I would just go to our store locator on our website, and then go to our Instagram. We got these young, unbelievably talented media guys that are now part of our family. That's and awesome. They're special. And we're trying to build this out loud. So the last thing, and I know we're at time, but we didn't talk about it much, but it's very important to us, the culture piece of our business. Right. So that's huge. Like have like a modern company, you know, a lot of the frustrations from corporate America, which we won't go into now, but we want people to love to work at Los Cuernos. That's very, very important to us, aside from everything else, aside from the wine, aside from everything. So there's that. And so, yeah, I would encourage you guys to, we're building this thing out loud on Instagram. So go to our Instagram, and there's a link to our, kind of our store locator. I just activated 2 more accounts yesterday. The queue of new accounts to be put on the store locator is like 7 from like the past few days. So we do it, our gal updates it every week. So that's the best place.
That's awesome. LosCuernos.com.
Yes. And
thanks, Drew.
Also LinkedIn. So yeah, we're going to be kind of telling our story. We're real wine lovers, bringing more wine to more people, and would love for people to follow the journey. And then if they know any really cool small food restaurants, hit me up. Hey, Cory, I'm like, we love to go there. If you see those really bad plastic bottles or terrible wine options, just let us know. We'll make a try.
We're saving the wine industry from itself, Drew.
Oh, one can at a time.
Let's do it.
Well, thanks, guys. This has been great.
Appreciate you. All right. Thanks, Drew. We absolutely love this conversation.
Yeah, really great having us on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.